Sugar, yes please, won't you come and put it down on me?
Alright, here we are for some polynomial division today. So we're going to start off a little warm up here. It says solve the equation and find the y-intercept. Sketch a graph of the function. So let's go ahead and start by solving it. Solving it means to find the x-intercept, so we're going to go ahead and plug in 0 for y. And we have 2x cubed plus 7x squared minus 8x minus 28. And since it's got 4 terms and it's third degree, I'm going to try grouping like we learned yesterday. So we're going to group our first 2 terms, 2x cubed plus 7x squared, and I forgot the squared up there, so we'll put it back. And remember, if there's a negative in front of that third term, it stays with the third term, minus 28, and we always drop a plus sign right in the middle then. Factor out a common factor from the first grouping, so that's going to be, it looks like the only thing we can take out is an x squared. So we have 2x plus 7 so we have we can factor out an x squared, and we have 2x plus 7 left over. In the second grouping, we're going to factor out, it looks like a negative 4. All right, so we'll go ahead and factor out a negative 4, and that's going to leave us 2x plus 7. And so my 2 factors here, based on what we talked about yesterday, one of the factors is the 2x plus 7, and the other factor is what's left on the outside, the x squared minus 4. And so the first thing I notice here is that I can keep factoring the x squared minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, or I can just take my factors and set them equal to 0. So whichever way you're more comfortable with. But remember, this is a difference of 2 squares over here, x plus 2x minus 2. Or again, like I said, let's just go ahead and set them equal to 0. 2x plus 7 equal to 0. X squared minus 4 equal to 0. We end up, we're going to subtract 7. That's 2x equals negative 7. So we end up with x equals negative 7 halves. And since we are asked to graph it, this is going to be negative 3.5. So we've got an x-intercept over at negative 3.5. Over here, we're going to add 4 to both sides. It's going to give us x squared equal to 4. When you square root, you need a plus and a minus on the result. So we have x equals, not x squared equals, x equals plus and minus 2. So we have 3 real number solutions, which is going to give us 3 x-intercepts. So we have, let's just do this, we have plus 2, and there's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. We have, whoops, negative 2 here, and negative 3.5 here. It says find the y-intercept, because the y-intercept is one of those things that's going to help you sketch. So plugging in 0 for x, hopefully this is pretty easy to see that as you plug in 0, all of the terms would cancel out except the negative 28 right here. So I can't scale my y-axis the same, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a negative 28 down here, and I'm not going to worry about everything else. Now, because this is a positive 2x cubed, the right side of this graph is going to go up, just like a parabola would go up on the right side. Then it's going to roll down through my y-intercept, back up around through here, and back down through this point. Do I really care how high or low it goes? Not at all. Not at all. All right, so there's your warm-up. Let's get into some polynomial long division here today. All right, so polynomial division is actually just like dividing numbers. Okay, the one trick is you just have to keep track when you subtract. So number 1, we first want to set up the division. Since we're dividing by x minus 2, that's our divisor. This guy over here is called our dividend. Not a big deal that you remember that, but 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. All right. And so it says, for the moment, ignore the other terms and just look at the leading x of the divisor and the leading 2x squared of the dividend. So I'm only going to focus on 2x squared and the x on the outside. I'm going to divide that 2x squared on the inside, 2x squared, by the x that's on the outside. Okay? All right, so 2x squared divided by x is going to leave me 2x, and that's the first thing that's going to go up on top of my division house. So that 2x is going to go right up here. So just imagine, you know, just like in normal division, you're going to figure out what number you're going to multiply by first, and let's do the multiplication. All right, so we're going to multiply that 2x through the divisor, x minus 2, and carry the result underneath. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. And here's the key right here. You have to remember that this is a subtraction. So the parentheses here are really important, because what's going to happen is you're going to forget to distribute that negative to that second term. 2x squared minus 2x squared, everybody gets that. But when you distribute that negative into the negative 4x, it makes it positive. So we have 3x plus 4x, which leaves us 7x. And then the next step is to drop the next term down. Okay, so we did step 5. We subtracted the polynomials, and we distributed the negative, and then we carried down the last term from negative 4. And now we're going to look at the x from the 7x and the x from the x in the divisor here. So basically at this point we're starting the process all over. We're taking 7x divided by x. Okay, so whatever's on the inside divided by whatever's on the outside, and that's going to give us 7. So this time we're going to be multiplying by positive 7. So here we go. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. We throw some parentheses around this guy. And once again, we're going to be careful here. We need to subtract. 7x take away 7x is gone. But we now have negative 4 plus 14, which leaves us positive 10, which is our remainder. Okay? This is our remainder, which means that x minus 2 did not divide into this polynomial evenly. Okay? So if we were going to give an answer for this, the answer would be 2x plus 7. Okay? So, and then if there's a remainder, the remainder goes back over whatever I was dividing by. Right? So 10 over x minus 2. So normally when you divide, you might end up with something like 4 and 7/9. This would be your remainder right here up at the top. So in this case, the 10's the remainder, and we put it back over the x minus 2. Not too bad, is it? All right? Let's try another one. So keeping the same steps in mind, all right? I'm going to take x squared minus 9x minus 10. We're going to throw that on the inside. X squared minus 9x minus 10. And we're going to divide that by x plus 1. So here we go, starting with the same steps. I'm going to take the x squared on the inside. I'm going to divide it by the lead term on the outside, which is x. And that's going to give me x. I'm going to put that x up on the top, and I'm going to multiply it by the x plus 1 on the outside. X times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x. So that's positive 1x. Now, if it helps, put a 1x in there. Put a minus sign out there and make sure you distribute. X squared minus x squared, that should always cancel out. That's the whole idea here. But negative 9x minus another x is going to leave me negative 10x right here. Minus 10. I start all over. I take the lead term on the inside, negative 10x. I divide it by the lead term on the outside, x. And that gives me negative 10. I put a negative 10 up on top, and I multiply. Negative 10 times x is negative 10x. Negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. I put parentheses around here. I put the negative out front. If it makes it easier, distribute the negative. Change the sign, so that would be plus. Distribute. Change the sign. That becomes plus. You can see how everything's going to cancel out here, and I have a 0 remainder. Okay? 0 remainder, which means there's nothing left over. Okay? So here's the deal. If the remainder on the division is 0, then we say that the division came out even. Okay? When you do division with numbers and the division comes out even, it means that the number you divided by is a factor of the number you're dividing. For instance, if you divide 50 by 10, The answer will be a nice neat 5 with a 0 remainder because 10 is a factor of 50. Okay? So think about that. And you could say the same thing about 6. What number divides into 6? 3 divides into 6, and that means that the answer is 2. So both 3 and 2 are factors of 6 because they both divide evenly. Okay? So our polynomial above, the 0 remainder tells us that x plus 1 is a factor, and this is a key right here. If it divides evenly, it's a factor of the original polynomial, which we can confirm. We didn't even need to divide this. If I would have just said factor this, you guys would have ended up with x plus 1 times x minus 10. Those are the two factors of that polynomial, and we just proved it through long division. Okay? So that's kind of the key, is knowing that when that 0 remainder shows up, that means that we actually have a factor of the polynomial. All right? So this last one's kind of interesting because we're going to divide w cubed minus 8 by w minus 2. Now this one's a little bit different because when you go to divide w minus 2 into w cubed minus 8, you have some missing terms here. You notice we have a w cubed, but we don't have a w squared, we don't have a w, and then we got a minus 8 like hanging out way down here at the end. Well, there's ways to get around not putting anything else in there, but it's just not as nice. So what I like to do is I like to see the x squared term. Well, I can't just put x squared because that would mean 1x squared, so I have to put in a 0x squared. There's no x squareds there. And I'm also going to put in a 0x, because now I can see the cubed term, the squared term, the term to the first power, and the negative 8, and now I can just do it like we did above. W cubed on the inside divided by w on the outside is w squared. So this is w squared. W squared times w is w cubed. W squared times negative 2 is negative 2w squared. Throw some parentheses around that, put a negative out front, and subtract. W cubes are gone. We have 0x squared plus 2w squared, which is going to give me a positive 2w squared. We're going to drop down the next term in the sequence, 0x. And we're going to start all over. Lead term on the inside, 2w squared, divided by lead term on the outside, w. That's going to leave me 2w this time. So I put a positive 2w up on top. 2w times w is 2w squared. 2w times negative 2 is negative 4w. Throw some parentheses around there. Subtract. The w squareds cancel. I get 0x plus, whoops, I got x's and w's in here. Geez, I'm messing all these up, aren't I? Did you catch that earlier? All right, so these should have been w squareds and w's and a w here. How's that? Does that look better? All right, you got the idea, right? So I have 0w plus 4w, which is 4w. I've dropped down the last term, which is minus 8, and I do it one more time. Lead term on the inside divided by lead term on the outside. That's going to give me a positive 4. All right, so I put a plus 4 up here. And 4 times w is 4w. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Now, if you ever come out with the exact same thing in that last line that's right above it, everything's going to cancel. 4w minus 4w is gone. Negative 8 plus 8 is gone. 0 remainder. So, is w minus 2 a factor of w cubed minus 8? Yes. Because w minus 2 divides evenly into w cubed minus 8. That's why it's a factor, because it divides evenly. All right? Let's see what else we got here. Oh, that looks like the next lesson. So we are done for today, ladies and gentlemen. Have fun with the homework.